The first thing Eleanor Hart noticed was the sound, an animalistic groan echoing through the quiet pine woods behind her cabin. It was the kind of sound that didn't come from any creature she knew, the kind that made her heart leap to her throat. She had spent 3 lonely years avoiding these woods since her husband's death. 3 years convincing herself she didn't need anyone. 3 years believing silence was safer than feeling anything again. But on that cold autumn morning, silence broke, and everything that followed shattered the life she thought she was destined to live. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in unexpected miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Eleanor stepped cautiously through the brush, her breath catching when she saw a man slumped against a fallen log. He was enormous, intimidating even in his collapsed state, with broad shoulders marked by bruises and dried blood. His leather vest bore the unmistakable patch of the Hells Angels. But what froze her in place wasn't the patch. It was the rope, rough, tight, cutting into his wrists, binding his hands together, and the way his head lolled, eyes half open, fighting consciousness. She wanted to run. She wanted to forget she ever heard anything. But grief does strange things to the heart. It hollows some parts and sharpens others. And Eleanor's heart, though lonely and cracked, still recognized suffering when it saw it. Before her mind could argue, her hands were already untying him. He flinched when her fingers brushed his skin. She could feel the heat of his pain radiating through her palms, the tremor of a man who'd spent too many hours fighting to stay alive. She dragged his heavy arm over her shoulder, her small frame straining to support his weight. Every step was agony for both of them, his body beaten, hers shaking from effort, but something fierce grew inside her with each staggered move. She'd saved nothing and no one since her husband died, but she would save this stranger. By the time she got him to her cabin, her lungs burned and her arms felt like fire. She eased him onto the couch, her breath shallow, her chest tight with fear and something she couldn't yet name. She cleaned his wounds, bandaged his cuts, and forced water between his lips until he swallowed. Hours later, when he finally opened his eyes, she saw something unexpected. Not danger, not aggression, but a quiet, confused gratitude. He looked like a man who didn't remember the last time someone showed him gentleness. Days passed. He healed slowly, speaking little, watching her with a wary respect. He told her his name was Rafe, nothing more. But the bruises on his ribs, the torn vest, and the way he flinched at sudden sounds whispered the truth. Someone had tried to kill him, and he had barely escaped. Eleanor didn't ask questions, and Rafe didn't offer answers. They existed in a fragile peace, 2 broken souls sharing the same small space, each trying to pretend they weren't leaning on the other for strength. But grief recognizes grief. One evening, as rain drummed on the roof and the fire cast soft light on the cabin walls, she found him standing in front of her husband's old tool bench. His fingers traced the carved initials T.H. Thomas Hart. Her heart squeezed. He turned slowly toward her, and something shifted. Eleanor realized then that he saw her pain the same way she saw his, not as a story to pry open, but as a wound to respect. The nights grew longer, the air colder. Rafe insisted on chopping wood despite his injuries, determined to repay her. She insisted on feeding him warm meals he clearly wasn't used to. He began repairing things around the cabin, the loose porch rail, the broken shutters, the door that always jammed in winter. He moved with the silent discipline of a man used to working alone, yet somehow everything he fixed made the place feel less empty. One morning she found a bouquet of wildflowers, awkwardly arranged, stems uneven, on the kitchen table. He never mentioned it, and she never brought it up, but the flowers stayed there until they wilted dry. Still, danger lingered in the air like smoke. Rafe woke often in the night, haunted by memories he wouldn't share, and Eleanor sometimes caught him staring into the woods, jaw tight, as if expecting someone to emerge. The truth came crashing down 3 weeks after she found him, 2 motorcycles roaring through the forest road, engines snarling. Rafe stiffened, grabbed Eleanor's arm, and pulled her behind him. But when the bikers stopped at the clearing, they didn't come with guns or threats. They came with bowed heads and remorse carved into weathered faces. They explained that Rafe hadn't been attacked by rivals, but by men from his own group. Men who turned on him when he tried to walk away from the life. He was done with violence, done with running, done with losing people. The patch on his vest meant nothing to him now. The bikers who came had risked everything to warn him. The men who hurt him were coming back, and he needed to disappear, for good. Eleanor felt as though the earth shifted beneath her feet. The fragile world they had created, the quiet mornings, the shared glances, the unspoken understanding, it all began to crack. Rafe packed that night, silently, efficiently, and with a heaviness that crept into Eleanor's bones. But when he reached the cabin door, he turned back. The look on his face was raw, stripped of the walls he always kept up. In that moment, she realized something terrifying and beautiful and irrevocable. This man, this wounded stranger she saved, had become the first person to make her heart feel alive since her husband died. And she had become his safe place. Rafe stepped toward her, his voice rough with unspoken emotion, telling her without words that what they found together wasn't an accident. It was a second chance neither of them expected. What followed wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise that he would return when it was safe, a promise that he finally had something worth coming back to. And as he walked into the night, Eleanor didn't feel the familiar ache of loss. She felt hope, fragile, trembling, but real. And sometimes hope is enough to keep love alive. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it, and subscribe so more people can feel the warmth of stories like this. Your support truly matters. Special request, before you go, comment below. Hope finds us when we least expect it.